Shalom. A guy says to his friend, "Where did you study?" His friend says, "Ooh, I studied in Harvard." Guy says to his friend, "Where were you educated?" He says, "I was educated in Oxford." But then there are some people that you ask them, "Where did they receive their education?" They say, "I studied in the School of Hard Knocks," or "I was educated in the University of Life." And actually, the Jewish people, during their 40-year desert wandering, they were really getting an education in the University of Life that would stay with them forever. This week we are reading Parshat Ekev. It's the third Torah portion in the book of Devarim. The pattern of these Torah portions, so compelling, so astonishing, the love of Moshe Rabbeinu that he's communicating to the children of Israel. This parsha, so many important ideas, the preeminence of performing the commandments, the mitzvot of the Torah in the land of Israel. Parsha opening up with the assurances of Hashem's blessings in the land. Historical review, issues that are discussed in this Torah portion. Again, the emphasis on Eretz Israel and the commandments. There's one section in this Torah portion which is really amazing. And we can begin reading from the beginning of chapter 8, where we read the entire commandments that I command you today, you shall observe to perform, so that you may live and increase and come and possess the land that Hashem swore to your forefathers. You shall remember the entire road on which Hashem your God led you these 40 years in the wilderness, so as to afflict you, to test you, to know what is in your heart, whether you would observe his commandments or not. He afflicted you and let you hunger. Then he fed you the manna that you did not know, nor did your forefathers know, in order to make you know that not by bread alone does man live, rather by everything that emanates from the mouth of God does man live. What an amazing set of verses. First of all, telling us that the purpose of our being led in the wilderness was to afflict us, to test us, to know what is in our heart, to know whether or not we would observe his commandments. Afflicting us and letting us hunger, but we didn't hunger because, as the verse continues, he fed us on the manna. What is this manna we've studied about so much? God here tells us, Moshe tells us that it's something that we didn't know, nor did our forefathers. And why? Why did we eat this substance, which we didn't know, and our forefathers did not know? In order to make us know that not by bread alone does man live, rather by everything that emanates from the mouth of God does man live. So what is this amazing idea that is being conveyed by these words? Obviously something which was intended to stay with us forever. Because these are massive, pivotal, earth-shattering concepts that these verses are telling us, that this was all about a learning experience. It was all about a test. It was to see how we would react, to see how we would observe the commandments. And it was in order for us to experience something, in order for us to learn something new that we did not know, nor did our forefathers know. So when God fed us the manna in the desert, there was no analogy to this whatsoever in any of our collective experience, not ours or that of our fathers. And this was something that would have to teach us, something that would enable us to know, to learn something, to gain a certain conviction that not by bread alone does man live. So we have 40 years in the desert, in the School of Hard Knocks, in the University of Life, 40 years to absorb this concept, whatever it means, that not by bread alone does man live. And, you know, you go to university, you take courses, you have a whole curriculum, and there's majors and there's minors and there's courses that are prerequisites. But here, there was nothing to draw upon, no background information, no previous course of study. It was something that we did not know, that our forefathers did not know. There was no analogy whatsoever to draw from. So, what is bread, really? And when we think about it, we realize that, you know, bread really represents human endeavor. It's my doing. It's not only that, it's mastery over nature. It's something that I had to wrestle out of nature. And it's a social thing. Other people also are involved. There's competition, and it was a group effort. It is really like man's dominion. It is a demonstration of a certain superiority of human intelligence that does what it needs to do, confronting nature and extracting what it needs in order to continue, in order to survive. So bread really represents this condition that we have for survival, and it is a way in which we directly address our environments and confront it and produce. And making a living is like that. In fact, isn't there an expression, you know, about providing our bread? And everybody's worried about providing this bread for our families, for our wives, for our children. It's a worry through which ultimately sometimes we justify any of our actions, because we have to make a living. We have to be able to extract that bread. And bread truly is something, it doesn't come from the ground, it's something that a person produces by mastering his environment, by mastering nature. And we seem to think that our existence on this earth is dependent on our ability to extract that. So, no matter how we get it, it's justified. And this bread, especially when we understand that it is a symbol of our survival in every way, it actually represents everything that we have to do in this world. We can take it to an extreme, this worry about providing bread. We have to provide for our children, for our grandchildren. We have to set up a trust fund. We have to leave behind equity, and so on, because we're so worried about providing this daily bread, because we need to be master, because we need to survive. We have the survival instinct. And it can become a lifetime pursuit to provide this bread. And we can chase around and never have time for anything else, because this is what we do as people. We provide. But in the desert, over those 40 years, in that incredible school of human knowledge, human potential, godly intervention, that was the 40-year desert wanderings, all of the factors which normally are part and parcel of baking bread, all of those aspects of human endeavor, of what it means to seek out livelihood, what it means to become part of society, what it means to have to produce, they were actually missing. And instead, God fed the children of Israel in a way that can't be compared to anything in prior experience or knowledge or curriculum, not of that generation and not of their fathers. There was none of the usual elements of human endeavor and human power. There was only one factor: the divine presence. And the way in which the manna was delivered to the children of Israel, instead of a loaf of bread that bore this stamp of human achievement, it was delivered to the door of every tent. It was delivered in an exact measure, the necessary amount for every family. And it bore the presence of God and delivered a message that there is a divine providence in the livelihood of every person, and that every person, every soul, is individually cared for. And the message of that experience was that actually that's the way it always is, and that's the way it always will be. And as much as we think that our livelihood is in our hands, the truth is that collective experience that we went through as a nation in the desert, which stays with us now, which stays with every generation, taught us in the University of Life that not by bread alone does man live, but by everything that emanates from the mouth of God. Every aspect of creation, every detail of our lives are part of the plan that God has in His ultimate compassion and caring for every person. Everything that we went through as a people in the desert stays with us. And that's why we are going over these Torah portions now. It's not only a history of that generation. This is a profound message that is resonating to every generation. We didn't bake our bread in the desert. What does it mean that He was testing us, that He was leading us in the wilderness for 40 years to afflict us, to test us, to see if we would observe the commandments, and letting us hunger, and then feeding us the manna that we didn't know and that our forefathers didn't know, so that we would know that it's not about bread, but that it's about everything that emanates from the mouth of God. That means that it's not about me. That's what it means. It's not about my little limited, myopic human endeavor that I think that I have to have these conditions all in a row in order to be able to provide for my family. It's not about me. It's not about everything that I think. It's not about this loaf of bread, meaning my ability to make a stand in this world and create something and leave something behind and chase after the bread or chase after the paper for future generations, bringing that bread home, but rather everything that emanates from the mouth of God, every aspect of every day, of every nuance, of every relationship, of every opportunity, of every potential contains the same ingredients and the same elements as the loaf of bread, and that I think that I've done. And so every opportunity that God gives us is actually on the same level as the manna. And just as the bread itself, it's not our doing, it's not our secret. It emanates from the mouth of Hashem. All of reality is just an expression that's spoken by Hashem, just a word. So too, everything that we will be going through, we can go back to that primordial knowledge that we learned in the 40-year lab, prep school, the desert, the school of hard knocks, the University of Life, and we can draw from that experience, because that's where we learned that it's not by bread alone, but that God fed us in a way that we never knew before and which we can always know in the future. It's by everything that emanates from the mouth of God.